You may have seen me around. As for the institution, University of Applied Sciences, from the Brussels perspective, that looks like that. Maybe a little bit more to the left, but just giving you some quick facts, so to find it on the map. So we've got some 5,000 students, 3 campuses, and what makes us special is a specialization in energy and resource management. We're among, say, the handful of university institutions which have a specialization in energy efficiency. So we're, even for German terms, quite rare. And we've got loads of our students getting us back with grassroots experience on what's working really inside a business and what's not working, which makes it interesting. When Ringel and Niels asked me to speak about energy efficiency, competitiveness and sustainability, I was very happy to contribute. But then I thought, well, what actually could I bring to the table? Because, I mean, especially to an audience like you, you have it all. I mean, just how many times have you seen this slide? I mean, can you still bear to look at it? So our argument, that reaching the 20% target, saves us imports, saves us money, saves us price instabilities, the equation, the slide, and we could expand it for 400,000 net jobs, which wouldn't be lost in global competition. We could expand it to CO2 reductions. So there's the whole story actually on one slide, and you know it. So then I thought, let's take this one, because I particularly like that slide. And there again, you know it. I mean, I've just put it because it was probably the tripping slide when we had the discussions on the Energy Efficiency Directive with the ministers, and should it be adopted, would they sign up to it? And actually we put the slide saying, well, of course it will have a cost impact, but then you will have afterwards benefits which you can reap, and also be aware you don't have only benefits for energy efficiency, but you also have costs for non-action. So actually what we are doing now by not tapping this 20% potential is we're just wasting resources, we're wasting money. So that was the bottom line, and I think it deserves to be, flagged up again. But here again, I mean, the story is not new, so that's not, that's no big news to you. And then I thought, well, maybe, we're going quite quick in this Brussels environment. It was very much about, can we get the 20? Can we bring the directive in place? Can we get it adopted? Can we go on? And now we're very much going on, 2030. Where's the impact assessment? Where, which targets, etc. And I thought, well, maybe, my role and the role of that presentation would be, to take a slight step backwards and, just take a look at what's in the impact assessments of the Commission and what's the findings in terms of the real benefits for the economy and for industry. And just dwell a little bit on that and reflect a little bit on that, because it's worthwhile dwelling on it and looking at it. So that actually is, again, table from the ED impact assessment, so common knowledge, but slightly overlooked because it comes at a very late stage in the impact assessment. But the importance of it is actually that it shows that whereas we're always talking about the European figures of energy efficiency, you can see that for each and every region of Europe, this energy efficiency positive impact is there and is quite tangible. So that's the story of the impact assessment, and also on a very global scale where you have studies like E3G, so this $10 rise in the oil price leading to a almost 1% decline of GDP for the oil importers, whereas if you do efficiency, you can increase your GDP actually by almost 0.2%. So studies like that, or the KfW study showing that actually every euro invested gives you a leverage of 4.5 euros in terms of getting your thing in place, and that actually this is a way to boost your competitive and to go about it. But that's just, there again, the very big pictures. So let's take, another step back and let's focus another way down, going to the industry and just see what benefits are in for industry. So I've been browsing some case studies. So what would happen if you just, built a new factory, and if you fully designed this factory to match energy efficiency, so latest technology, and actually the results of these case studies show that you can actually build plants which save you some 38% in their energy consumption compared to business as usual, which would be the electricity consumption 1 year of 1,000 households, or 360,000 euros per year. So quite a tangible one. But that's just, again, a slice of the whole cake, because the whole cake is that you have additional benefits. And these are the tangible ones plus the intangibles, which in a study the IEA tried to assemble and try to put down. So looking at all the benefits around, and actually they found, by reviewing 77 case studies, that you'd find well over 200 non-energy benefits. So we're not talking about lower prices, we're also talking about lower energy bills, higher productivity, resource efficiency, lower greenhouse gas emissions, safer working conditions, etc., 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 just to put a few here on the slides. And actually, if you sum that up, that would actually mean, according to the IEA, multiplying the energy savings by a multiplicator of 2.5, which would then give you the real monetary benefit of what energy efficiency can bring to your industry and how energy efficiency could, get the thing on the ground and get it efficient and get it competitive. So that's, a thing worthwhile thinking about, because while we know and have loads of talks about the prices and the energy costs, we don't necessarily consider, like Barbara mentioned in her presentation, we don't necessarily consider these additional benefits to the scale we actually would need to do. But here again, it's just case studies. So how would the thing look on a more aggregated terms? And for that, I've browsed through the impact assessment and graphed the industry consumption in various roadmap 2050 scenarios against the impact assessment or the primes case for reaching the 20%, which is, the lower one. And as you can see, the roadmap very much thinking in terms of economic growth and a real kickstart of the European industry and economy after the crisis, going up to very high consumption figures again. Our impact assessment at the time for the Energy Efficiency Directive assumed that, Europe's industry would take advantage of the crisis in order to get more efficient and significantly go on a lower growth path. And just, as we speak 2020, but also 2030, as we speak of difference compared to the reference scenario above, the difference would be some 22 million tons of oil equivalent for 2020 or 25 M2E in 2030. So a significant difference if we really go about energy efficiency in the industry side seriously. And that's just M2E, so let's just tag it with prices and just take the latest World Energy Outlook price projections for 2020 and 2030, which leads to some astounding $20.7 billion, which could be saved just in 2020 and $23.5 billion in 2030. So we speak definitely about energy resources, but we also speak money, very significantly about money. So that's the key message I want to see here. And that's just the overall industry picture. So going back to the sectorial ones and just giving you a quick cutout again of the impact assessment, we at the time had problems finding proper sectorial data with the impact assessment. So actually what we did in terms of modeling and to have it was a, say, worst case scenario for industry. So we put a model which was sectorial, and we just assumed that prices would rise to the point where we'd reached the 20% and then looked at the impact assessment. Of course, a nightmare for the industry, but even in this, well, let's call it nightmare scenario, you can see that still, even with incredibly high energy prices to just, force the consumption down, the output changes and the energy efficiency effect of the story would still outcompensate this price effect and leading for, well, almost all of the 41 industrial branches we looked upon, positive growth results. So here again, that's just another way of depicting how strong the case and how strong the story for energy efficiency is, also on a sectorial basis. And of course, we know by now, and we're much cleverer, that we still got loads to reap in energy efficiency. I remember in my time in the ministry, say in the early 2000s, when we, spoke about energy efficiency in industry, and I mean, we always thought, well, why should we as civil servants mingle? Industry's got their price calculations, they know how to calculate energy consumption, it's part of their prices, so they've got every interest to keep their costs down, and they will keep their costs down. How stupid we were, actually, because of course, on general terms it works, but you've got loads of issues like, say, small and medium-sized enterprises, where energies are just not the key, the key thing, and the core business, where they actually need to have help in order to bring it about. So there is support needed, and actually many member states have put in place support schemes going on, dedicated industry audits, so going to the place, looking around and addressing a list of what could be improved, and then backing it up by soft loan schemes like KfW at the starting point, now followed in by examples from Netherlands and Italy. So there's loads to do. But that again is just the cost side. On the other side, of course, you have many SMEs in Europe which do energy efficiency technologies and who are exporting that. So here again, I mean, at a certain point in time, we found that actually these exports happen, but not on a systematic basis. So it was quite often the case when we spoke to people that, actually they've been on a long distance flight to Hong Kong, speaking to some guy, from over there and saying, well, I'm doing this fantastic triple placed windows, wouldn't you be interested? And they brokered a deal which was marvelous, but not systematic. So you had a whole bunch of other guys who weren't on the same plane and who couldn't place their products. So just doing export initiatives like this low one energy efficiency made in Germany, you've got a few more cases around Europe, in the UK, etc., where actually, we try to get this first mover advantage we always speak upon and we speak about, to really get it on place and really get it out. So that's another thing where we can systematically support the industry in order to get their case done. And here again, sticking with SMEs, let's just speak costs. So I've taken an example from Ireland, so some roughly 40,000 kilowatt hours per year, savings in case studies from 1 to 10%. So let's do a conservative approach. So let's just give it 5% savings, tag it with 11.2 cents, so the average kilowatt hour of the EU 27, which I found in Eurostat, and just multiply it by the 20.7 million SMEs we have in Europe. And that actually leads, I mean, it's an on-the-table math calculation, but I mean, just look at the price tag and the level of it. So here again, the impact is quite tangible, and of course the competitive effect is quite tangible. So you have a case to tell there in terms of competitiveness. Now, question of course is, as we speak, not only competitiveness here, but also sustainability. Well, if we go about that, will it just be more, or will the thing go green? And my maybe too positive opinion, I don't know if it's too positive, is that we will go green. I can see people frowning here, so that's just, the typical economist stance of, just saying, well, he just argues it away. But, no, the dire fact is it will go green because it has to. Let's just face it, we can't do price competition with China. Just yesterday, the IEA issued a warning that actually energy prices in the USA would go down to a level that, they'd be the industrializing exporter and Europe would deindustrialize. So here again, as it seems, we won't be able to go on price competition with the USA because, and then taking a step to the side, if we try to do price competition, we'll end up as the German solar industry when actually the Chinese industry entered and they had to go on price competition. So that's job decreased just in 1 year when the German solar industry had to compete with the Chinese imports. Don't think I have to tell anymore. So that's a sort of skeptic optimism that we don't have any choice but to maintain our first mover advantage and our competitive edge by doing energy efficiency and bringing the thing about. And just as a reminder, we're not only speaking industry and we're not only speaking products. So here, on that slide, just, take a look at the service side. So that'd be the energy service companies, and if you, assume that each and every of them has a sort of specific knowledge which is in place, which could be exported, just look at the comparison of the knowledge around in Europe and the knowledge around in the BRICS countries, who will develop over time and who will need this knowledge, and you've got another export market for energy services around. So here again, another slide to keep up our optimism, and to say that we've got something to export, but that we clearly need to work on that. So with that, coming to my conclusions, so energy efficiency, and no surprise, is at the heart of a green growth strategy. The OECD said it in 2009, and I think it's worth repeating over and over again, especially as we speak about 2030, because it is much more than just energy savings. So all the ancillary benefits, all the extra benefits are definitely worthwhile having, and are definitely a waste if we don't go about them seriously. So, in my humble opinion, energy efficiency should play a very key role in the European 2030 framework for the policy making. But on the other side, because there again in the 2020 discussions we had it very much, should it be targets on one side and instruments on the other side? So putting this sort of dichotomy, which actually isn't, we can speak about targets, but on the other side, in terms of really delivering and getting it on ground, I think we still have a fairly tough job to do to get it over in a more systematic manner and more systematically across all fields, because that is eventually when the whole thing will deliver. And with that, thank you very much.
Sorry, it's me again, Andreas from European Industrial Insulation Foundation. Yeah, just for clarification, I would say if the money you invest is paid back, it's an investment. If it's just costs, there's no investment. So I would say reduce costs for investment in energy generation and distribution, that is an investment. But increased investment in energy efficiency, that is really an investment. And the rest is a cost. So the money we lose is really a cost. There's no investment, it's never coming back, it's just lost, and we need to stop this waste. It's a waste of money and a waste of energy. So I like that slide very much, and that point of perspective. And then maybe later on we can discuss the reasons why industry is so slow in taking up this competitive advantage. Because I think we all believe in it, otherwise most of us would not be here. So it's preaching to the priest. And it's so unfortunate that we do so hard on inviting those people who should listen to these excellent presentations and to open up eyes. Besides, there's so many economic arguments to go for it, and I share your view that this is going to come because it's just an economic need, but we should accelerate the process. Otherwise, it might be too late for Europe. Thanks.
Didier Bosbeuf from ADEME, the French Energy Efficiency Agency. I am also in the eceee board. In your presentation, you have two types of argumentaire, one which is micro, using study case, and one which is more macro. And from my experience, I think micro examples are more strong or robust when we discuss with policymakers than macro assessment, because they don't believe these macroeconomic models. So what is your opinion if we have to argue with some small case studies to develop this type of case studies and to have more numbers, or to develop some more macro argumentaire? It's for ministers.
I think it works both, actually. I mean, so yes, I know that's a sort of boring answer, but no, I mean, really just taking that slide as we have it, I mean, that's just a very macroeconomic calculation and the sort of flashy arguments that actually ministers want to see. I mean, I've always had the case of arguing, say, with the minister or Secretary of State or whoever who is coming to me and saying, well, we need to be serious about energy efficiency, and then once you start to go into the detail and you know, explain about rebound and whatever, I mean, you're very close to you know, reaching the point where they say, oh, go away with that, it's too technical, so let's just forget and go on another dossier. So that's actually where you need the big numbers and where the big numbers work. Having said that, taking case studies and I mean, getting it on ground and making people see that this is just not, you know, adding up on, say, European scale or global scale and you know, just a very big picture, but that actually, you know, on micro level, for real, the thing wouldn't work. I mean, that again wouldn't fly. So optimally, you would need to balance both of it in order to have a strong story. So just telling, you know, we have a macroeconomic benefit on the one side, and just, you know, if you want to go down to the detail, the company, you know, right in your constituency actually worked on the same thing, and actually what it delivered for them was, you know, that and that amount of kilowatt hours and that amount of savings. So if you can combine these stories, I found actually from my experience that the thing gets the most powerful if you can have it.
We have one question in the back, and then we will take the break.
Eppermeus and UMAPS EPS installation. 2 days ago, the report from the EAE was being published, the Energy Outlook 2013. And there, one of the major things that I found in this report was the consequences of US shale gas developments, making clear that in 2015 still the energy gas prices in the USA will be 3 times lower, and in 2020 I think it was still 2 times higher than here in lower than here in Europe. What do you think are the consequences of this kind of models, but also current reality for the kind of argumentation we use over here?
I mean, it's very much close to this IEA analysis, which I've been mentioning. I mean, if you got more countries who could run on price competition just because they have lower prices, you know, you have to find your place somewhere else. So it can't be on you know, putting the prices down, etc. So you would need to find, say, well, a niche would be too little, but you would need to find your place in delivering an extra which would work on the global markets. And that extra, in my opinion, and many others, would just be to go for the efficiency part, because that's just, you know, where you can have your extra, where you have your competitive advantage in terms of knowledge, in terms of technology, in terms of production techniques. So we're actually already good at that. So in that respect, we wouldn't need to fear that much, you know, United States going fracking and getting the prices down. We wouldn't need to fear, to the extent we should actually, you know, Chinese exports of you know, taking the things and getting them around for cheap money. So if we can, you know, keep the energy efficiency stance, and if we can, you know, develop that, I mean, it'd just simply, you know, boost us up against these potential shocks which would come up from the outside.